Hello and welcome to Technical Utkranti, and today we are going to look into the merge overlapping subintervals question. These are the questions we have looked into in the arrays, and let's see what the question is. So you are given an array of intervals, and if the any two intervals are overlapping, then we have to merge them. Okay. So whenever these kind of array intervals based questions comes up, the first thing that you should get in mind is to arrange them in the ascending order based on either the row index or the column index. I have done it for the row index. How it would be useful, we'll see it later. Okay, let's go to the code now. So this is the array that we have. Okay, and I have arranged it in ascending order based on row. Right. If we print the intervals now, we'll get, so this is the original intervals, and after arranging them in the ascending order, we have something like this. And let's see how I have written the algorithm. So this will help us loop on the list of intervals, the while loop, and if, okay, so what is this condition? This is checking if the upper limit of the current interval is greater than or equal to the lower limit of the next interval. So if we go back to the PPT, what I am checking is if the upper limit of this interval, if it is less than the lower, sorry, if it is greater than the lower limit of this interval, then there is definitely some overlap, right? If this point is below this point, then these two intervals are overlapping. Okay, so these two have to be merged. So in merging, we have to merge these two intervals and decide the upper and the lower limit of the merged interval. Correct. Now, since we have arranged this in the ascending order of this over here, right? So this we know that this particular limit will be less than or equal to this particular limit because it is ascending order. So for the merged interval, the lower limit would be the limit of this particular interval only, but the upper limit would be the maximum of these two particular intervals. Okay, so that's what I have done. If there is an overlap, then the upper limit of the current interval would be the maximum of the upper limit of the current interval and the upper limit of the next interval. And once I do that, I remove the next interval because that has been merged. All right. And when there is an overlap, I will not increment I because this and this is merged. So now this merged thing has to be compared with the next interval. So I'll not increment I. I'll increment I only when there is not a merge. All right. Now, a very important thing to remember here is we are not going to use for loop over here. We will use while loop. Why? It is because for loop is an enumerated loop. So when we have for loop in a language like C, whenever the condition changes inside the loop, the for loop execution also, I mean, the number of times the for loop will execute also changes. But in case of Python, once we write for I in range of something, then if that something changes over here, it does not affect the number of times the for loop will be executed. If the range was 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the for loop will execute for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, even if the element inside that range function has changed. So such kind of for loops are called enumerated for loops. That's why we are using while loop over here, because in our case this intervals is getting updated inside this loop, so we need to consider the changed length at each iteration. That's why while loop is used. So that is a very important point over here. All right. And then if we print the interval. So as you can see that 1525 should have been merged, even 38 should have been merged. as 1 8, and then 9 and 10 there is like 1 8 and 9 10 there is no overlap. So that's the answer for us, right? So I'm very sure that this particular video was full of lessons learned. uh, let's again revise it. So whenever array interval this question shows up, the first idea that you should get in mind is to arrange it either in ascending or descending order based on, if it is two dimensional, row or column, or if it is multi-dimensional, based on some index you should be arranging the elements inside the array, and then you traverse it. All right. So yeah, that's it. uh, Thank you. Bye bye.